Good evening, and welcome to another rambunctious episode of Diatribes from the voice of doom. Now here's your moribund and morose host, voice of doom. Good evening. I'm going to do another one. I'm doing this third one today because I'm on a roll. And I gave you a good recap of my philosophy of doom, fatalism, and nihilism. And then I gave you some good life lessons with my, narrative on my early experiences with Buddhism and some of their concepts that I find, enlightening. And it helps me to understand how the universe works. So I'm really happy about that. So I thought, well, yeah, I could do another diatribe. And maybe I'm a little less lucid, but you can see as the day progresses. And it's about a minute to midnight. And I spent a lot of time talking to my kid about various things. And we had an interesting conversation about technology and our dependence on it. We were talking, he said he went to a place he had to do some merchandising and the scanner wasn't working correctly and it was like things weren't happening. And I said, well, that's kind of the signs of what might happen if things go bad. And he doesn't poo-poo my ideas anymore. He treats each one with respect and consideration. So I'm happy about that. So I was going to do one of those three-parters or whatever. I want to talk about the victory. And I want to talk about and victory with a VA. And I want to talk about revisiting something that I couldn't revisit, but I could talk about some of it. And the third thing, I don't know what it was, but it'll come to me as I look at my notes. First of all, the minor stuff, the domestic product. Okay. There was going to be a bellwether of things to come. Okay. It's only 86,000 votes away from being a tie, which is always what happens. I don't know why everything has to be so close. It wasn't close before, earlier in the day, and then suddenly it's close to 86,000. That's plenty of space to cheat. So I will not break out I'll have a little drink and toast what I hope happens. If I hope what happens, then a toast to that. And I'll tell you why. Well, I'll tell you that later. They can cheat, and they're going to cheat. Tomorrow morning, there's going to be irregularities found in every county, every single county, because they made it so there'd be irregularities with all the mail-ins and all this and that. There's going to be a whole bunch of ballots coming in from somewhere that were all postmarked incorrectly, or they're all mail-in ballots. Who knows? 86,000. So I'm very skeptical about, just declaring victory now. This guy Youngkin seems like a good guy, and he seems like a regular all-around good American that maybe wants to have the America we have, which these guys on MS call Trumpism. And I know it's racist and it's white supremacist to go back to the America we had before all the crap was out in the harbor and the border was wide open and terrorists were getting free reign. But he seems like a good guy, and I thought it was kind of a funny shtick of his. He looks like a Walmart greeter. So I'd be the first one that said that. Nobody will know it. I saw him, and yeah, okay, but this Winsome Sears now, this is something different. I love her. She should be president. And when I say she should be president, she should try to change her job to House of Representatives and be the Speaker of the House like in a week so that she can get in line, because she's great. She's really great. I didn't really pay any attention to the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Didn't really cross my mind to care. And I would vote for her for president any time. And yeah, I hear you guys from high school. You only like her because she agrees with you and she's, a person of color, and now you feel good about yourself. So there's no winning. Forget that. Gets you angry. But that's exactly it. The only one that can articulate it correctly, even. But I wanted to revisit because that's not over. We'll see what happens in the next 3 days. Irregularities. There will be bitching. There will be a reason to think fraud is afoot. But I like this Winsome Sears. She's going to be great. I want her to go up to the top. Very top. Afghanistan, I wanted to keep revisiting it because I said I would, and nobody really wants to think about it. But there was an explosion again, and I thought I'd try to do a two-parter, but I can't because the search engines don't have anything. I was going to talk about climate change and how you can't find anything on the search engine with real data because it all goes back to, but we're doing it bad now. I'll tell you about that later. Samurai Ahmadi Nazir, the soldier Zamir was his nephew, Faisal Farzad Malika Arwin Benjamin Hayat Somaya. Nowhere on the internet. Nowhere. Their names are gone. And that's a shame because you would think if it was an American atrocity that's pretty much a war crime, then the primary victims or, the primaries would be, in the history book somewhere or on the data, but their names aren't anywhere because I looked them up and you can't find them. So we don't have to worry about them. But I guess on the bright side or not bright side, they blew up a hospital today. It's the 73rd attack in 80 days. 80 days since the takeover, and they consider that around August 26 or something. That was when the first attack was. And there's been 73 in a span of 80 days. And the last one was a hospital, a military hospital. 25 people killed according to unnamed sources, who are usually the best. And one of the people killed, and whether they were a target in the first place or just happy coincidence, a guy named Malvi Hamdullah Mukhlis. Now, Malvi sounds like a cool name. Hey, Malvi, we're going to the club. Let's go. But he wasn't a clubber. He was in the hospital and he was blown up. And coincidentally, if you looked at all the news, or any news, you'd see that he was the guy that was sitting in the chair in the presidential palace, floating with his gun and smiling, sort of. I don't really like to smile, but sitting there imperiously thinking we have beaten the greatest force in the global history. We are the high mucky mucks. Blown up. So, sic transit gloria. Look that up in your dictionary at the back. Foreign phrases. It's a good one. And even drunk, I'm kind of brilliant because I will tell you, you can't find their names on the internet. Now, how does that tie in with the climate crisis, which our beloved Petri dish is diligently working on in Scotland? Not really anything, except that when I looked up climate change migration throughout history, I couldn't get to past the stuff that keeps saying the same thing. So I couldn't find the data. Because I know people move. They go and they look at a desert, or they don't look at a desert, they're in a fertile area and then it dries up and they go, we got to get out of here and go somewhere else. I don't think they thought about trying to solve it or trying to control it. Saying something we're doing is causing it. Maybe something they were doing was causing it. Maybe they put a dam where they shouldn't have. In Egypt or whatever. And they didn't know the repercussions. But people move, climate changes, and they're, we know they're delusional. Anyone that's a sentient human being, which is very few, knows they're delusional. They're using this as some sort of a pretext for other things that they want to do, which I should never ever talk about, and I probably never will. By the time I talk about it, everybody will be talking about it, so forget it. But anyway, let's pay homage to former Haqqani Interior Minister affiliate Malvi Hamdullah Mukhlis, because it wasn't that long. He was sitting in the high chair and now he's blown up. So it's Taliban. And I will say that for Petri dish, if he manages to make it 3 years and a month from now, 3 years, let's just say, which would be a horrendous thing to think about. That cannot possibly happen. But if he did, and he's running for re-election, he can use that and put it on his good things that he did. That he let out the ISIS-K and let them back into the jungle so that they could kill the Taliban. And now it's looking like the Taliban are actually better friends than ISIS-K. Taliban promised security and they can't keep themselves from being blown up. So again, I say good job. I mean, Petri just said, I believe his exact words were, just think about how much better things are than they were last year at this time. And anybody that has, their eyes, the cornea is connected to the retinas that send it to you that say, last year compared to now? Come on. That's not a question that should have to be answered. So I said nothing, and I said a lot. I wanted to pay homage to Malvi Mukhlis. Be a good host. But the family has been forgotten. I hate to say that, but we haven't forgotten about how we're killing ourselves with global warming or climate change or whatever you want to call it. And I have more to say about the socio-political global thing. I think India's going to be kind of in charge soon because they seem to be the only real smart people. This Dogi or Dory or whatever his name is, I don't have his name handy, but seems like he's got it together. I like him. We'll get it more global, People are putting their 2 cents in. It's not just America. America's kind of lost it. I don't think they take us seriously much. So, I'm just meandering. I'm just free-forming it. I think the day was interesting. I hope this Winsome Sears goes far. I hope she's president in a couple of weeks because we need her. I can tell. So I'll leave it at that. I've said what I want to say, and bonjour and cherchez.